Hey, it's Detangler with your daily detangler, and I want to talk to you about creating content together. So, when you look at content and collaborating and building outputs, I think we're doing three things really well. We're working towards prioritizing what we produce, and that's a work in progress, and it takes team collaboration to figure out what to prioritize. We're also trying to build something with purpose. We want the content we produce to be useful, and we want it to be valuable to Catalyst and to our customers. And we're trying to put in consistent effort over time so that the outputs we create get better and better. So I think we're doing those things really well. When you look at that, let's talk about it. There are a lot of things we can create. There are a lot of choices that we can make on a daily basis. The question is, what must be created, and how do we leverage technology to help us create? We've innovated there. We're using Zoom in different ways. We're trying to use pictures. An example of this is the Daily Detangler. If you think about the very first one that I sent and how that's evolved over time, we've really focused on evolving and iterating based on what our feedback is and what people are telling us. And also what I look at, what work I do to prioritize the actual detangler content and topics, there's effort I put into that to try to map it to what we're struggling with on a daily basis. And the way I do that is I use our orchestration orb to help us. I do have a process for the detanglers. I do think about you as a listener. I think about what information I can chunk out, and then obviously the technology piece that I just mentioned. Another piece that's working, or another thing that's working for us, is being purposeful. We are spending a lot of time asking really tough questions of each other. That creates productive friction, but in that friction that we create, the content becomes the priority. That helps us avoid groupthink and also allows us to practice using our principles. And I think we're doing that really well. The other thing that we're doing well is consistency. And when we talk about consistency, it requires an effort. It requires a lot of attention to the details and being in tune with others. So the way we do that is we actually are spending time gathering feedback from one another. We're shopping our ideas around. We're seeking feedback from each other. We're providing that feedback to Catalyst, which helps him keep momentum. And by putting in that consistent effort over time in those daily, little bite-sized chunks, we're able to move quickly. The other thing that we're talking about actually this week is how do we get more empathy for what our clients are going through, and also what they're doing to drive change as change agents. And we're spending more time with that. So to help us with that, I've got actually bringing in a guest. As you guys can tell, the format of the Detangler is a little bit different, but I've got Kaylee Hogan with me here today. How you doing, Kaylee?
I'm doing good, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for jumping in. You've been getting these detanglers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm putting you on the spot. I've got a couple of slides that I just want to get your reaction to. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there for the detanglers. So I'm going to ask you three questions. You don't have to, you just answer them in your head, and then we'll talk about it. The first question is have you ever wondered how a boulder can become a granite teddy bear? Or have you ever wondered how a plastic bottle can be created from a computer program? Have you ever wondered in 3D printing how that actually happens? Or have you ever wondered how an idea can become an output, where somebody else's ideas actually become, software applications or pieces of paper or PowerPoint slides? And have you ever wondered that? So those are my three questions. Have you ever wondered how a boulder becomes a teddy bear, how a program inputs and strokes on a keyboard can become a yellow bottle, or how an idea can become an output?
I lose sleep daily over the Boulder teddy bear issue. So if you could solve that one for me, I'd be eternally grateful. But to answer the latter two questions, yes, I think 3D printing and how stuff gets formulated from an idea to even a physical output is really interesting. And in my role in sales enablement, I'm finding often that I get outputs that other people have created maybe in the past, or in a silo, and then I'm left to iterate or build upon it. So I often have lots of questions about what ideas propagated this piece of content, what content needs to be created or iterated on that thing, and why are we creating this and iterating on it. So those are all definitely questions I have. Obviously the teddy bear one is the most important, so if you could get back to me on that one, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll work on that. You bring up a great point. I'd love for you to unpack a little bit more, this output discussion that you just brought up around. You get a lot of outputs from a variety of different people, and it's like, here you go, Kaylee. Here it is. Either go use it or give it to sales. And you say, from that, there's things that you have to do. What types of things do you have to do? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, and I also want to just draw it back to something that you and I have talked about a few times, where it's not about activity, it's about impact. So when you're handed something and you're asked a question, particularly around an output, I think before just running and viscerally creating the thing that someone wants, you need to look at the big picture. What is your seller's journey? Where is this piece of content going to be created? Who's involved in creating it? Is it consistent with all of the other pieces of content that consumer of the content is receiving? Is it branded similarly to things that your company is putting out there, so that they're recognizing it and not having to add additional mental effort to understand how you formatted something? So I think those are all components that need to be evaluated and then worked on collaboratively as a group in order to progress on that piece of content. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, it does, and especially with regard to moving it further down the value chain, and getting content into the hands of salespeople or into the hands of executives or others. And then when you look at, I guess, ideas as they're coming at you, have you ever been able to, on your side, create new ideas and then build content for others? Do you have that capability in your enablement team where you guys work to turn ideas into outputs?
Absolutely, all the time. And I think the key success for that though is to have all of the stakeholders at the table when you're sharing and iterating and prototyping out your ideas. So if I have an idea for a sales tool for sales leaders, and then I just go off in a silo and I create it and then I release it and I communicate it and I hope that it lands, that was my idea start to finish, yes, but it's not inclusive of the full group that's going to be using it and iterating on it, etc. So I really like to take ideas and bring the end users and the stakeholders of that resource together when we're starting to ideate, so that when the output is created, it helps them answer questions and it helps the end user do whatever activity or task you're trying to get them done doing within that piece of content.
Yeah, it's great. So what does progress look like then in that case?
Good question too. So I think going back to your orchestrator orb, if you're zoomed in and you're just looking at the people or the technology or the information or the process, it's going to be like that image that you have there on the left. It's going to be very in the weeds and noisy, and you can get caught up in that. You can get lost, but you really need to look at the big picture and realize, oh, the thing on the left is a building that's being built, and I, the orchestrator, need to remind people of what we're building and what that end-to-end journey is. We're building a building here. You're not just welding that metal bar to that metal bar. There is a big picture. There's a reason why this is being done, and the people that are on the receiving end of this are going to be impacted by the way you design and develop and iterate on this content. So I think having that top down, bottom up investment also in what you're creating, at least within the sales group and the enablement group that you're in, that definitely helps in terms of alignment and then obviously progress.
Yeah, that's great. And I think there's two ends to that. There's the make sure you remember the big picture that we're building a building, and then on the flip side, you may you may have to actually turn some screws. Get dirty, put on the safety harness and start climbing up and do the welding, because you can't necessarily outsource that work to somebody else if you're in that type of role where you've got you put your I call it put your fingers on the keyboard. You know.
Yeah, and I think the more that you could be aligned with your company's branding when you're creating this content so that it's recognizable to your end users, that is such a critical factor for me and what makes me very successful in the content I create, because I have this vision from the start that it's going to be aligned to the brand image and messaging, and that helps it get received and consumed more.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let me show you something to get your reaction to. We work as change agents. So think of our brand as we are change agents. And most of the stuff we create is custom in the moment, actually in the context of the change that's happening. And what we found is we have to cultivate what to build. So in the context of we're going to build new content, we actually have to determine what to build in the first place. So there's a lot of blank sheet of paper challenges. And that requires us to actually collaborate on that. And that's a whole process in and of itself to figure out what are we going to cultivate. Like if we ask that question of what do we cultivate in order to spend the right energy to build the right thing, that's a process. We also spend time actually crafting that. Okay, we're going to cultivate, we need to build a teddy bear out of granite. Well, let's craft the teddy bear. Well, we've got our cuddly teddy bears, we've got our mean teddy bears. There's different themes that we could have in our teddy bears that we're going to build. And that's a collaborative process too. And then we move to testing out what happens, especially if it's going to be useful. And how people react to that teddy bear that we're going to be building. And in the context of sales enablement, these 3 steps could be: we're going to cultivate a account plan. Then we're going to have to craft the account plan from scratch and figure out what the themes are in the account plan. And then we need to check out and test that account plan in reality of a sales team to figure out if that would work or not, if we were creating that account plan from scratch. And then those are all different processes, by the way. That was what we're finding. Then we find that when it comes time to crystallize that and share it, that there's a process to indoctrinate people to it, or get them aware of it, all the way through to having them embrace it. That's a whole separate process that creates conflict, because oftentimes people have different perspectives, they have different ideas, and they, quite frankly, they have a whole different end state vision of either what the teddy bear should look like or what the actual account plan should look like. So we have to develop techniques and collaborate there. And when we do these 5 things, we can then move to how do we produce a polished asset and a polished artifact. That's what we're learning in the context of creating content. So what do you think about that? How do you react to this?
I think you're right. I think all of those things are separate processes, but together it's one big building. It is one process in of itself. And I think in stage number 5 with the conflict, reminding people as the orchestrator in the room that giving and getting doesn't mean by default that someone wins and someone loses, or you get what you want and I by default don't get what I want. There's a way to negotiate, and as you've crystallized things and continue to iterate on them, so that everybody gets at minimum a little bit of what they're looking for. And then again, your asset is meeting as many needs as possible, and additional assets don't get created in other silos. So yes, I would agree. This is a fantastic process.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll have to test it with you too and keep making it better.
Definitely.
Do you have to jump to another meeting?
I think I'm good for right now.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I was gonna say we've actually tried to build out approaches to this and meetings, different types of meetings, and we're trying to do this asynchronously as well. And it's not easy, but I think we're making progress on that. One of the things we're finding is, for example, in sales and sales enablement, that salespeople, marketing people, customer service, even executives come at it top down. In other words, when they see like this slide, they would say, well, I can't sell this. This is too conceptual. It's too academic. And they go straight at it from usability or what they've already known. And then they say, well, change my mind, layer 4. Let me test this out with my own bias to see if that would work for me, which is layer 3. then let me back into it and see if I would have come up with that if you hadn't. And then number one, let me shop that idea around and see if people think I'm smoking crack or not. So
But if you don't do all of these things, you're going to go through that disillusionment slope that we've talked about several times, where something fizzles out and you're left going, do we just kill this thing or should we keep going? Because people didn't go in and check with each other and crystallize and conflict about it. So I think you're not smoking crack. This is definitely important. Teddy bear question still remains unanswered. So
it's a process. We just have
process and we have to figure it out. I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when people that don't have like these layers of collaboration in kind of built in, they're going to come at it as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What we're doing is coming at it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To figure it out and emerge to something where when the conflict happens, we've already pressure tested it. Like to your point, we've already crystallized, we've already checked, we've already crafted.
I think Get It Done doesn't even do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Brian. I think you're giving them too much credit there. I think they do 4, 2, 1.
I like it. 4, 2, 1. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're probably right. Looking at it, we're going to crystallize it, craft, and cultivate. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I like it.
This is my idea. Craft it and cultivate it. Go.
That's awesome. Yep. So what this relates to from our principles, Kaylee, is we've built these 7 principles and we're trying to live these. And this is about, to me, trusting the process that we've outlined on the previous slides to say, look, we are being disciplined. We're following this layered approach. We need to help each other understand what layer that we're in. And then we also need to be able to structure the information up in a way that helps our team collaborate. Yeah. So that's the principle that we follow. And why do you think, I'll let you do the recap. Why does this matter? So why should people care about what we just talked about?
If you went back a slide, actually, I almost feel like it's also principle 1 and principle 3, because if you are not focused on the experience that content is going to provide and be heroic in trusting the process, you're gonna get to yes quickly and you're gonna miss all of the context. So I think in summary, you do have to find those points of collaboration across these different groups and help them see the big picture, as well as what their little piece or their not so little piece in their mind contributes to all of that. And you can go back forward. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
I did want to call out that I think this is also a motion of being heroic, because to say no, to say, hey, why are we doing this? Is there a better way to do this? Those are sometimes unpopular opinions. And when people are trying to move fast and quick, stopping and asking those questions can add a couple of days of iteration to something. So I think all of this requires just that orchestrator's commitment to the cause. And when they do, you will see increases in consumption of the content, retention of the information within said content, and better performance from your sales team. So it might feel like a big, long, intense, crazy process to endure, that boulder you're pushing up the hill or the teddy bear you're pushing up the hill. But at the end of the day, it is actually going to benefit people. So that's why it matters to me.
Yeah, I love that. And what if somebody told you, there's so much that needs to be created or figured out. We're in a new economy, COVID world. We're trying to take the right path, which means we have to build all kinds of new stuff. What would you tell people, or what advice would you give to say, to answer that question or that objection around just the sheer volume of what needs to be produced?
Yeah, I think my response back to that is less is more. We pre-COVID, at least in my company and others I've worked in, we're just so into adding more content and more training and more functionality and more tools and more process, and that's great because it shows that you're growing as a company. But you also have to be taking things away at an equal, if not accelerated rate too, so that people are really clear in what they need to know, what the messaging is, how they are expected to perform. And it's not seen as them in this giant sea of ambiguity. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say around this world of COVID is work smart and heroically, not hard, and take things away from the experience, because everyone's Zoom fatigue, everyone's overwhelmed with what's going on socially in this day and age. And I think if you can make it so that their job and the things that they're having to learn and understand in that environment is simple and consistent and simple, then it will actually land really well for them. I said simple twice because it is really critical.
I love it. Wow, this has been totally unscripted, and I'm just blown away because it really triangulates a lot of what our team is dealing with. So I really appreciate the insight. So on behalf of Kaylee, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the daily detangler with our guest. And Kaylee, thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for helping me detangle the issue of the teddy bear. I was definitely losing sleep over it.
All right. See you on the next one, everybody. Awesome.